Vicky, what is dating like in lockdown?
It is interesting to to put it lightly. I mean, I think it's so difficult anyway to find someone who you click with, who will put up with, your boozy brunch and your spontaneous trips to IKEA, especially where I live in London, where not many people make eye contact anyway. They've got to have 2 pints before they feel the confidence to approach you. And I prefer meeting people organically, whether that's, recently and bizarrely on a spare room or in hostels or through work or on nights out. But now, because you've got limited social interaction with people, it does have its own challenges, but it also has its benefits as well.
Mm.
Um, I think the benefits is that it actually filters out the time wasters, the people who don't respect rules and guidelines, who clearly don't care about their own health or other people, which obviously shows their selfish interests.
Mm.
And it forces you to get to know someone slowly. You learn more about their personality. It's a patient exploration of each other's souls rather than each other's physical bodies. And I feel there's less pressure and you're more creative with dates, whether that's outside
Mm.
or on Zoom. So it has its highs and lows, to summarize.
Olivia Pato, is it right that you just decided to get back with your ex?
Yes, but just to clarify, that is not just because I wanted to be with someone during the lockdown, which I know is a trend that we are seeing now. Because there is this thing that happens every winter called cuffing season, whereby single people basically look for someone to couple up with for the colder winter months, to kind of combat fears of loneliness. Obviously, now we are going back into lockdown in most parts of the country. Those kind of fears of loneliness and anxiety are exacerbated. So there is this kind of re-emerging trend of cuffing season, which people are now calling coving season, which is a terrible term, whereby people are basically looking for partners to spend the lockdown with.
Vicky, are you finding that among your friends, your single friends?
No, I wouldn't say that. I'm blessed with two incredible housemates and a cat, so I think I'm sorted. But I'm thinking about for people who are single and they live alone. I know that they do find it really challenging and it is really difficult. So I wouldn't be surprised if some people in that category were thinking of that. I mean, cuffing season in pre-COVID times has its highs and lows as well. There's people who, they want the snuggles at the pub, but for me, I never push myself to choose someone depending on the season
Mm.
because for me, well, more expensive Christmas presents, But I know that there'd be a pressure right now because people are feeling lonely. And I wasn't on a dating app in full lockdown before. I was actually dating someone online on Zoom during full lockdown before,
Mm.
which was really cute. Like we were having themed dinners. He sent me a bottle of limoncello. I sent him a mask. It was like a proper pandemic love
I
story.
know which
But
I prefer. I mean, it gets its name from handcuffing. It's not the most romantic phrase, cuffing season. But before I move on to get a male perspective on all of this, you can't mention a cat on Broadcasting House without giving us its name. So can you just tell us?
It's called Amelia, and last night I finally won its love over me. Like she sat on my lap and I managed to stroke her, and I thought, wow, that's big. I've been here 2 weeks, so finally I've made
Yeah.
it.
Yes, I know what you mean. My dog finally likes me after 6 years. Now, Jonathan Self is 48. He's a portrait photographer, and he told us that dating in lockdown has been a refreshing change.
So I've found that the intensity has been up slightly. I think people are much more intentional about what they're looking for, less playing poker games or playing the cards close to the chest. And I think there's slightly more openness. I think people are much more honest. I think the first dates have been fast tracked. When I've been on a few first dates, I feel like they've been more like a third date on the first date rather than just, do you fancy them? I think people have been honest and say, actually, I'm wanting to be in a serious relationship, or I am a sexual being, or whatever it is. And I think that's been quite refreshing and quite welcome. There's a quickening to the process that possibly wasn't there before, and I think people are more authentic now as well.
Now, Olivia, Jonathan echoes what Vicky says, that there is a way in which lockdown has made things more authentic. And you host this Millennial Love podcast. What about the physical aspect? Are there people out there who are trying to wrestle with what's legal if things move to a physical stage?
Yeah, well, that's the thing that's really interesting. I think in the first lockdown, when we had all of these restrictions, everyone was kind of really up for embracing this new, like, virtual world of dating. And like Vicky said, you know, there were a lot of benefits to that. People were fostering much deeper connections. But, you know, ultimately, we are now in a position where we don't know how long this is going to go on for. And that way of dating, as lovely as it is, it's unsustainable, because obviously physical contact is an incredibly important part of dating and fostering intimacy with someone. And you know, now we are in a position where in the majority of the country, it's actually illegal to have sex with someone outside of your household or support bubble. And that's in tiers 2 and 3 in England. But if you're in tier 1, it's almost even more complicated, because the government actually said last month that sex is no longer illegal between people in established relationships. Now, that term is incredibly confusing, because what does that even mean? And it taps into one of the biggest anxieties about modern dating, which is labeling what you are to someone. Everything is so ambiguous with dating today, to the point where we don't even really call it dating. We're more likely to say we're hanging out with someone or we're seeing someone. We use all of these different terms. So how on earth are you supposed to establish whether or not you're in an established relationship with someone? It's incredibly complicated.
Vicky, did you move a date forward to get round the rules?
Yes, Friday night before so I'm in London before we moved to a different tier and we couldn't meet inside, so I met someone on an app which I recently joined 2 weeks ago, and we went for a drink inside rather than outside or meeting outside. Yeah,
And?
it was good. He's lovely. I'm not going to put all my eggs in one basket though.
Mm. How many baskets? How many eggs? I mean, the thing is, you were able to meet him, and presumably other ones will now be more Zoom.
Yeah, or I think it's about being creative as well. You know, you could go for a walk in the park with a hot chocolate. I think that's lovely. But also, yeah, you're right, Zooms. And I think the problem with dating before, when I was in full lockdown, there was this guy. He was like a knight in shining armor, you know, sweeping over my internet. He was amazing, and we had such wonderful moments. But Olivia's right. You know, when restrictions were lifted and we did meet for the first time, socially distanced, the spark wasn't there. And it's so important to be able to, yes, Zoom dates are a good substitute for now, but at some point you're going to have to meet each other and think, does this really actually click and connect? So it is incredibly difficult. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much indeed for giving us such a account for our benefit here. Thank you both very much.
BBC Radio Berkshire, 19 minutes past midday. Sarah with you this afternoon. What's trending on the way after 1 o'clock this afternoon? We'll take you through the breaking news, the most read stories, the things that people are busy chin-wagging about on social media. In the meantime, we're talking about dating over the last 7 months during the coronavirus pandemic, where we had really strict restrictions at the beginning, then an easing off of them, and now a slow ramping up of them. And bearing in mind, most people now are meeting each other online. How challenging is that proving to be right now? Let's speak to someone who knows. Here's Vicky, who's busy dating as we speak. Hi, Vicky.
Hello, how are you?
I mean, not literally as we speak, or at least I don't think you are, because that would be really weird and probably multitasking in the extreme. It's not as though you're talking to me and swiping right or left at the same time, presumably.
No, oh my gosh, I've actually had to stop swiping because it's going to make me sound really bad, but it's just, we know when you're connecting with a lot of people, how are you supposed to have a genuine connection with someone if you're talking to so many people? I think it's best just to swap swiping for the moment and just actually chat to people, because that's what it's all about. That's what's going on an app, is building connections with someone and hopefully seeing where it goes.
Well, I mean, really, you're going to have to explain the ins and outs of this to me, because I have dabbled in online dating, and with varying degrees of success, I would say. It's a very odd world, isn't it, online dating? But before we get into that, you very nearly managed to swerve it, because I understand that you did actually meet someone just before lockdown, which at the time was boding quite well.
He was the perfect gentleman. So we met briefly before lockdown, just in a nightclub. That's the thing. I always meet people organically. So whether it's, you know, on a night out or in a chicken shop or through work or Spare recently, that was a new one, which is a housing app, housing website. I was actually looking for the room, but I said, "Oh, I'm not interested in the room." But
that is extraordinary, Vicky. On a housing app, good grief! Is there nowhere that you will go for these things?
Oh gosh, that makes me sound awful. I think it's just because I like talking to people, so I come across quite friendly. But yes, so yes, this charming gentleman, and we started to get to know each other throughout the full lockdown, and it was wonderful. You know, we had Zoom dates, we had dinner, we had themed dinners. So one night was Italian themed night, and he ordered me a bottle of limoncello to my door. You know, we had movie nights where we could watch it over the internet. I actually sent him a mask so he could have it in his place. So it was a proper pandemic love story.
Right.
And then up and it was just no spark. It was really upsetting. Exactly what Olivia was saying, a previous guest. You know, as much it is a substitute, of course, but it's not real life dating. You know, the difficulties of actually going from Zoom dates to real life dates. It's a completely different element. But yeah, I mean, he set the bar so high now. So people I'm talking to, I'm like, well, you've got to be Prince Charming and send me a bottle of limoncello to my door. Otherwise,
yeah. I mean, I full marks for creativity. It must feel very odd though to be sitting at a table by yourself in your kitchen with a bottle of limoncello and I don't know a ready meal pasta for one, whilst you're communicating with someone via FaceTime or via Zoom in a completely different place. What a weird old world we're living in at the moment, Vicky.
Yeah, you just have to be adapt, as you said, and be creative. And I mean, another night, we had burgers, and he ordered burgers to my door, so we cooked together. So it was really cute, and also I think it's more personal and intimate as well, because you're looking inside these people's houses with their kitchen. I mean, as you said, with the clothing horse. I mean, the other day I had a video call, and this guy who I'd never met before, we did a video call because I do a screening process, and he saw which is 20 pairs of shoes. I've never met him, and now he knows how many shoes I own. So it's intimate snippets of something which you might not necessarily talk about on a first date or show on a first date, but it's the real you. And I think that genuine connection overrides many first dates that people might have on apps, or even conversations that they have on apps.
This sounds like you have a process, and I'm fascinated by this because now you've mentioned that you do a screening call with these potential suitors. So talk me through the process then. So you're on a dating app and someone comes up that is supposedly a potential match. Is it swiping right or swiping left when you want to know more about them? I'm not entirely au fait with this. What happens?
With this particular app, to be honest, as I said before, with my random meetings with people, this is the first time I've been on an app for 3 years, so I've only been on it 2 weeks. But you actually match with someone on the right, so it's a heart, and then the left is a cross, and then so you start a conversation. And what I think is really interesting is because obviously in this current climate, it filters out the time wasters. It filters out the people. First of all, if they don't believe in COVID, that's a big no for me, because one of my best friends has had it. She's got long COVID. She's still suffering. So that's a huge boundary for me. So yeah, that filters them out. And then obviously it's the people who just want to meet up and have some social interaction, which is okay, but you need to be happy with yourself before you go in a dating environment, which I think is important as well. So I ask if someone wants to do a video call. So that normally tests their reaction, because if they're happy to do so, then that means they respect my boundaries and they'll respect me later on in different elements of the relationship. But I've had one person, well, I've had quite a few people actually say, oh, that's so much effort, I'm Zooming all the time now. Or another person kept complaining. And then we did a video date and then he complained the whole time. And I thought, okay, well, this isn't going to go well if you can't.
I mean, it's a new level of technological, I don't know, laziness, isn't it? To sort of say, I'm too tired to do a Zoom call. I mean, goodness only knows how, when you'd next see them or how much effort they put in if they to actually meet you in real life. So once you've done the screening process, say someone gets through the screening process, and it doesn't sound as though many have, to be honest, what's the next step? Because that is crucial to this, right? What do you do next?
So then I say, because I'm in a tier 2 situation, so then I'll say to them, look, I'm happy to meet, but obviously we've got to be socially distanced, because I think some people I'm speaking to aren't grasping the fact how serious this is. And so when it's really awkward. Well, like if we meet up, they'll go for a hug, and I'm going for like an elbow bump or toe tap. So it looks like a weird TikTok dance. And so I think it's important to grasp how comfortable people are. So I'll say to them, look, like one of my good friends has had it, and I'm going to be really cautious. And they've just got to be understanding of that. And I've had this guy who was remarkable and wonderful, ticked all the boxes. My parents would have loved him, like literally. And then as soon as I said that, it took him days to reply, and I thought that's not cool if you're not respecting that, which is pretty, a normal ask in a pandemic, you'd think. So that's another layer. And then once they've passed that, then I'm like, okay, this person is a good guy.
And it sounds, though, just finally, it sounds as though that there are multiple irons in the fire, Vicky. Would that be fair to say? The way of the world with online dating, it sounds as though the way to approach this, or the way that a lot of people approach it, I'm not necessarily saying this is the way to approach it, but it is to talk to multiple people at the same time in the hope that there's strength in numbers and eventually someone will materialise from that group.
I think people have different tactics, and I think it varies. I mean, if it's a lot of effort to talk to people all the time, especially if you want to have a genuine connection with someone. So you actually want to invest more energy and time in talking to them. So some people will just talk to a few, others will just talk to as many as they possibly can, even copying and pasting messages. That's what I've heard. So I think it varies on the individual, but yes, it is interesting, especially dating on an app, but dating on an app in a pandemic is a new level. Yeah,
it sounds utterly exhausting. Can I be as bold as to ask how many irons are currently in the fire, Vicky?
Me? I'd never do such a thing. Multiple.
Yeah, I'm sensing that there are quite a few conversations going on at the moment, and I wonder how many of them are going to get through the screening call, but that's a different matter entirely. Lovely to talk to you. So that's Vicky, who is currently busy dating online at the moment. Is this something that you've done? Because I just find it fascinating.